Brenda heard me on my Coach Robb podcast talking about the idea that when you're on a calorically restricted diet, you actually reduce the integrity of the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and you negatively affect bone density. And she asked me if I would please clarify what I meant by that. When you look at your nutrition, we always refer to nutrition in two elements, quality and quantity. When you're trying to figure out where does the quality come from, please keep it extremely simple. Walk into the grocery store, shop the perimeter of the store, and you've got the lion's share of everything you need. Fruits, vegetables, and lean sources of protein. When we look at quality of food, we'll assume that that's what you're doing in regards to breakfast, lunch, and dinner and your snacks throughout the day. When we look at the quantity, this is something that a lot of people get confused about. Please take a look at the screen right here. This is a snapshot from the Garmin dashboard that shows you how many calories you're burning on a daily basis. You'll notice in the red, that reflects what you're burning in the form of active calories. In the blue is what you're burning, what we refer to as your basal metabolic needs. How many calories do you need to stay alive? How many calories do you need to stay healthy? How many calories do you need to rejuvenate the body from the inside out? Now, when you're looking at this graph, if you're wearing the Garmin heart rate monitor, those numbers are specific to you, which is fantastic because what it does is it takes a lot of the guesswork away. How many calories should I take in on a daily basis? Should actually be turned around and look at what your burn rate is. Please don't let somebody tell you this is what your calorie burn rate is. Let the watch do the math for you. It's taking into consideration your behaviors from sunrise to sunset, and for as long as you wear the watch, it becomes more and more accurate about you. Very, very important thing to keep in mind. When we come back to the original question, how does a calorically restricted diet reduce the integrity of the tendons, ligaments, and muscles? Think about when you eat. Those are what we would refer to as your building blocks, literally from the inside out. So if we go to the deepest level, bone density. Many people don't realize that bone is not like a piece of wood. Bone is actually in the blood family. So if you look at a bone underneath a microscope, you'll notice it's very porous. And the reason why that's important is you've got to remember that the integrity of the bone is going to be predicated off of the foods that you eat. Literally, we're building ourselves up from the inside out. Bone density is going to be predicated off the amount of load, like weight training. Load-bearing exercises increases the density of the bone. However, where people have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot, if you're trying to increase bone density through strength training and you're on a calorically restricted diet, how do you expect the body to rebuild itself? That's why it's important to know how many calories you need to sustain life so that you don't go below that. Very, very key component in regards to maintaining the integrity of the bones. Let's go to where the muscles attach to the bone. That is done through tendons. If you look at a piece of boat rope and you lay it out on a dock and you leave it there for a couple months in the sun and you pick that rope up, you notice how it becomes very frail, kind of doesn't take very much effort to break it apart. I want you to apply the same thing to the integrity of your tendons. The only way that you can have good tensile strength inside the tendons is by the nutrition that you bring in, both quality and quantity wise. If you want the integrity of those muscles to stay to the bone when you put them under a lot of load or maybe even an impact, like in the area of an impact injury, to keep that muscle from ripping off the bone, that tendon has to be healthy, has to be very thick and durable. Well, if you're on a calorically restricted diet, how do you expect those tendons to rejuvenate themselves every night when you sleep? They can't. They don't have the necessary building elements. Let's look at ligaments. Ligaments attach bones to bones. Very similar to the tendon, we want to have very durable, we want the thickness and the health of those ligaments to be resistant to any kind of torquing or any kind of resilience to tearing. I hate to use that word because it's never fun, but it's the reality of it. Many people don't realize that a ligament has a certain amount of elasticity. So this is why hydration is important. And that's why I'm talking today about the nutrient quality and quantity. How do you expect the ligaments to stay durable and thick if you're on a calorically restricted diet? When we go back, take a look at the screen. When you go back to the blue, you can go to your Garmin and you can hold your finger down on the dashboard, or if you're on the computer, connect.garmin.com. You can put your mouse on the blue and it will show you what your basal metabolic needs, the blue. Look at that over a 7-day period. You're going to notice it doesn't deviate very much. So now come back to me. Now that you've seen how many calories that you need, that's just to sustain life. And for the context of this video, it's how we maintain the integrity of bones, tendons, and ligaments. But what is the key component of movement? Muscles. And muscles are not immune to this concept at all. If you want very strong, thick, resistant to injuries and tearing, they have to be fed and hydrated. They have to be rested to give themselves a chance to rejuvenate. When you break the muscle tissue down, if you think about this as muscle fiber, as you break it down, you get small microfilament tears. That's where we get the inflammation and swelling, residual soreness. Well, when you give the body what it needs, quality and quantity, I keep coming back to quantity because most people are not eating enough calories. You give the body enough of what it needs, now the muscles get stronger, they grow in size, they have better top end raw power, better top end speed, and they have better endurance. So I wanted to clarify, first and foremost, thank you for listening to the Coach Robb podcast. I greatly appreciate it. But in regards to clarifying this, stop and think about, if you're not eating the right quality and quantity of foods, how can you expect your body to be resilient to any kind of injury? Always stop and ask yourself, is what I'm doing physically being supported with enough quality and quantity of food? And again, going back to the Garmin dashboard, you have quantification of what your calorie burn rate is. Now match that with your calorie intake. My suggestion, and I request this of all my clients, is use the MyFitnessPal app. When you go to the app store, it's MyFitnessPal by Under Armour. I'm not in business with them. I don't get a kickback. It's just a very user-friendly app that does integrate with Garmin. So what you can do is look at calorie expenditure and you can look at calorie intake. And then you can start to dive down a little bit deeper. But for the sake of this video and the subject about increasing the durability of bone, tendon, ligament, and muscle, it has to start with adequate quality and quantity of food. So I'm hoping that that makes more sense, not only to the question that was asked, but for yourself. However, if I didn't completely answer your question, or if I created more curiosity, please do me a favor. Send me and my team an email. You can do so at contact@coachrobb.com. Every single day here on YouTube, we will be answering a question, so please make sure that you subscribe and turn on your notifications. I want to personally say thank you for giving me part of your day today to listen to this concept, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.